This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, I'm intrigued by headline number one here, which says the difference between the CAC of 2018 and 2022. We're about to find out what that is. So what is that?
Well, you may recall that 4 years ago I maintained and still maintain to this very day that the people who were most surprised by the CAC blowout back in 2018 was Francois Legault on the CAC. I always believed they had no idea that they were going to win that big. And we saw hints of that up until the pandemic sort of like, changed everything. But we saw hints of the fact this was a government that was, as I've said in the past, making it up as it goes along. Very improvisational approach to governance. A lot of their laws, more controversial laws, they weren't really sure what they were going to, get themselves into. So, when you look at Bills 96 and Bills 21, where you've got built-in notwithstanding clauses, these are not pieces of legislation from a government that knows what it's doing. And more importantly, they are pieces of legislation that from a government that clearly admits it didn't really know what it was doing. All that said, to a certain extent, there was this huge hiatus for, the responsibility of governance. We had the pandemic. Everyone's attention was focused on getting through those 2 ridiculous years. And here we are, 2022, an election campaign where in this particular instance, the CAC was fully expecting to win. Now, just think of all the little plans and all the little schemes that have been concocted for the first term that never got off the ground because of the pandemic. We are going to see those things unleashed upon us sooner rather than later. I'm absolutely certain of this. And I have a sneaking suspicion that this day, this particular Friday, the 14th of October, will be the last that we'll be able to talk about the theory of the new CAC term. I think they are going to hit the ground running next week. You'll probably see lots of leaks about government policy. We already are this week. But by the time the swearing in of the cabinet comes in on the 20th of October, I think you are going to see, our listeners are going to see, a very clear indication of where this province is headed. And I can't give you all the details, but I can assure you it's going to be a bumpy ride. And the final destination will be exactly where Francois Legault and Francois Legault alone wants us to go.
All right. I want to get your take then on what we can expect. I know we're still a week away from this, in terms of cabinet postings. We've already heard about the issue with Pierre Fitzgibbon. We talked to someone suggesting that Jean-François Roberge might not, in fact, be the education minister in this next government. Were you hearing anything else?
Well, listen, I can't see through a brick much further than the next guy, but what I do see right now, there are at least 2 dark clouds swirling over this government. And it's funny that you mentioned the cabinet selection, that you mentioned Pierre Fitzgibbon, because we were discussing him yesterday, and the buzz was that he would like to be a kind of, super economy minister. In other words, he wants to see some ministries glommed into the economy and, business development, whatever. One of those ministries was energy and natural resources. And, the ostensible explanation is, well, it just makes sense. We have to develop Quebec, and, hydropower is a huge asset, huge resource. Well, that's all very well and good. But then we discover today, courtesy of La Presse, in fact, more specifically, courtesy of Francis Vaille is a columnist of La Presse, and he is saying that he has been given information that a clash is about to occur between Hydro CEO Sophie Brochu and Francois Legault, specifically on this idea that the energy ministry would fall under the control of Fitzgibbon, and the energy ministry, let's face it, is like the Ministry for Hydro-Quebec. And Madame Brochu was being interviewed this week by Paul Arcand, and it was very interesting what she said. He asked her, there were rumors that she was going to leave next spring. She's not supposed to leave for another couple of years. And her reply was sort of heavy with suggestions. She says, as long as, the inside management, is healthy and we're able to meet the energy demands of Quebec, I'll be there. If for one reason or another that should change, I'll be having serious discussions with my shareholder, i.e. the Quebec government.
Yeah.
And part of this is that even though François Legault over the course of the campaign was talking about we need more dams, we need more power, we want to get rid of our carbon footprint. The suggestion is that, well, yeah, we're going to get more dams, but perhaps that energy is not necessarily going to go to the electrification of transportation and providing Quebecers with reasonably priced energy. It's going to go more to, say, various industries that need energy at a reduced rate. And if that's the case, Madame Brochu has made it clear she may be walking out of that job, which is a key position in Quebec, and not just in terms of government, but in terms for all of us, what we pay for energy. It'll be very interesting to see if all of a sudden this government, which is, about the Nation Québécois, becomes the government that is about les économies or les affaires québécois, and if there are businesses that will be able to profit from cheap electricity because you and I and our listeners will be paying for it in terms of our hydro rates. That'll be a very interesting situation to see unfold. It'll be also interesting, I hate to say it this way, but thus far, of all the conflicts that François Legault has had, politically, many of them seem to have involved women, and it'll be interesting to see in this particular head-on collision who's going to wind up standing once the dust has settled. It's between him and Sophie Brochu. If she does leave, this is going to be a much darker cloud than it is now over this government, because whoever replaces her will basically be perceived as an unofficial government bureaucrat, ensuring that the energy needs for various companies in Quebec are met, even though, as I say, you and I and our listeners will be paying for it. The other issue which has come up, and you guys may have heard about this, is that even as François Legault was stomping all over a suggestion from Quebec Solidaire that they have a special tax for gas guzzlers and polluting vehicles. He said it was ridiculous. There's inflation going on. This is just another orange tax. Well, it turns out that the transport department, his transport department, has already been planning for just that. They have various scenarios on how to, in terms of reducing the carbon footprint, making it more expensive, so that, the same policy they did with cigarettes. If you want to drive a gas guzzler, well, that's fine, but you're going to have to pay more for it. So we've always seen two, conflicts in the making. The second one, as far as I'm concerned, is classic CAC, say one thing and do another. And they haven't even been sworn in yet, guys. So as I say, interesting times, but the next 4 years with a government that feels that it won big, and it has pretty much a mandate from, the Quebec nation, he said, making air quotes, to do whatever the hell they want.
Okay, Natasha, Jim, stay with me here, okay?
Yeah.
Let's assume this plays out and François Legault does what, Jim, you're alluding to here and makes Pierre Fitzgibbon, gives him that super ministry, including Hydro-Quebec, which causes Sophie Brochu to say, the hell with you, I'm done. So What do you think, Jim? Sophie Brochu, the next provincial Liberal leader.
Ooh.
I don't want to insult anyone, but I probably won't get away with it. Madame Brochu is very, very accomplished. She was named CEO of the Year by the Globe and Mail. I can't say it another way. I don't think politics would be a step up for her.
Right.
Okay.
So, but then let me ask you, what will keep her in this job right now, given the demand? I mean, she's so good at her job. She could get any job she wants. Why doesn't she just say, "See you later, suckers. I don't need you, Legault," and get a great job in the private sector?
I said that this week to Paul Arcand, but I think the idea was that comment, as far as I'm concerned, was like a 7,000-pound bombshell right across the bows of François Legault. In other words, you want to dance, buddy? Put on your shoes, because we will dance. And as I say, the optics on this will be so bad that even François Legault can't talk his way out of it.
Yeah.
We shall see what we shall see. Just remember, I floated the idea here. James MENNIE, just saying, Jim, just saying.
I know we're out of time, but maybe the next time we'll engage on your idea.
Okay. Jim MENNIE, Jim, you have a good weekend.
You too, guys.
All right.